We are going to do a Q&A. I just did my hair, and hopefully it stays like this for the entire episode, because there's no guarantee on a balcony that your hair is going to stay the way that you want it to. This is a combination of questions that I received from you guys. Thank you so much for submitting those on my community tab and on my Instagram. And this is also some questions that I have heard asked from other creators, things that I thought might be interesting to include in the Q&A. On my channel, I share about my fertility journey, and I've been sharing a lot about the IVF cycles that I've been through, the IUI cycles that I've been through. I've shared about purchasing donor eggs and making that decision. And there's been some questions that have come up along the way, either on my videos or on my Instagram, and I kind of wanted to have a place where I could answer a lot of those questions all at one time. So if you're here on your own journey, please take what resonates with you and let go of what doesn't. Thank you very much for being here and for watching. And now let's get right into those questions. One of the questions I get most commonly, and one of the questions that was left for me to answer in this video, was, am I planning to use donor eggs again? And to answer this simply, we do plan to use donor eggs again at this point if trying naturally, what we're doing now, doesn't end up working. I've come full circle on this question, from a place of accepting the fact that I would have to use donor eggs to now being back in a place after learning so much more about what my body can do naturally and how we can heal and grow during this, that I am back to a place where I don't actually want to use donor eggs anymore, and I still want to try to use my own eggs and try naturally. I have learned a lot since the video I left about making peace with having to use donor eggs, and one of the ways that I made peace with having to use donor eggs was because I was told that there was no way to increase my egg quality. I was told that by my IVF doctor, and that is actually not true. That is scientifically not true. That is biologically not true, and that is categorically wrong. There are things that you can do to improve your egg quality, and we have known this for at least like 20 years. I highly recommend reading Rebecca Fett's book, It Starts with the Egg, and you will be convinced, the way that I was, that there are ways to improve your egg quality. Since I have learned that, I have taken a closer look at my own blood work, which does show that I am nowhere near menopause, and that there is the ability, that I do have the ability to improve my egg quality, and have. So my plan is to keep trying naturally until I do actually get pregnant, or until Stephen and I get tired of waiting. Obviously, we don't have forever. I will get closer and closer to menopause, as the years go on, and we do want to start a family as soon as possible. But for right now, we are very happy to be seeing this path out for wherever it takes us. Next question is, are you considering surrogacy? Surrogacy is a much bigger question, I feel like, than donor eggs, and using donor eggs. And I feel a lot differently about surrogacy than I do about using donor eggs. First of all, as the mother, surrogacy removes the creation of that child another step away from me. It's not my genetics if we use donor eggs, but I would still be able to nurture the baby from fertilization onwards. And my body's genes will influence not only my body's genes and the environment that I have myself in, that I live in, is going to influence the baby's genes. So even though the genes technically aren't mine, I have influence on them from day one. With surrogacy, it's not my own genetics, and I have no control over the environment that the baby is being nurtured in from the moment it's conceived, or the moment that it is implanted, I suppose. What I've researched and, listening to different podcasts and learning more and more about the surrogacy option, the experiences that a baby has in the womb are important for the rest of its life. Even the way that the child is born is important, can have implications on the rest of its life, its health, its stress levels, nutrition, allergies. A lot of things can happen. There's a foundation that's being built while the child is in the womb, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to provide that foundation. And it's still a form of adoption in a way, but it's a form of adoption that's further removed from me being the mother. I prefer not to use a surrogate. I would have to say that there is nothing that's completely off the table, but surrogacy would be a last resort for both me and Stephen. Third question from you guys is, why did you decide to try natural cycles again after IVF? I think I've talked a lot about that already, but I'll say it's for two main reasons. One, because I've been learning so much and reading books like Rebecca Fett's It Starts with the Egg. I've been listening to podcasts, I've been watching other people's YouTube vlogs and stories, and it's just given me a lot more perspective on the ability to get pregnant in your 40s. It's been very hopeful. It's been something that's really been eye-opening to me, and I've enjoyed the process. And the more I dive into the fertility topic, the more I started to feel empowered that, hey, I'm still healthy and strong, and I have energy and I still have eggs. So why not keep trying? Previously, I had thought about fertility as being more of like an on-off switch, where it's either on and you can get pregnant, or it's off and you can't get pregnant. But what I've learned is that it's much more dynamic than that. It's something you can influence. It's something you can get closer and closer to. It's something that can happen spontaneously, or accidentally. It's not quite as simplistic as I thought it was, that you hit a certain age and all of a sudden, like, there's no way you could get pregnant. That lifestyle, health, nutrition, supplementation, even some of the surgeries that I had in the past to remove fibroids, have all been getting me closer and closer to being able to get pregnant naturally, even in my 40s. The second reason is because IVF is really, really expensive. And frankly, we ran out of money. Yeah. If you're on the IVF journey and you have started to try and contemplate the large sums of money you will be having to shell out for this, you already know what I'm talking about. If you're fortunate enough to have insurance, you probably also know that insurance will only cover up to a point. It's not a well of money that you can just keep pulling from. There's cycle limits on the insurance, or dollar amount limits on the insurance. There's things they will pay for and things they won't pay for. It's a very long, complicated process to have to navigate the entire time you're also trying to go through the fertility process, the IVF process, and get pregnant. It can be quite stressful. So basically, we did have insurance. We were also supplementing that insurance with our own money, and we had a set amount of money we wanted to spend. We went through that. We went through the insurance, and we had nothing to show for it. We didn't have a child yet from any of it, and it was years, and it was emotional stress and ups and downs. And so essentially, we needed a break financially, and I needed a break emotionally. And so it just felt like the right time to kind of take a step back and let ourselves heal from not only the hormonal back and forth, but also the financial drain that it was on our resources. On that note, my recommendation for you is, if you are considering IVF, because it is so expensive, I would highly recommend you start working on your health, your nutrition, your lifestyle, and your supplements first, because those things are relatively cheap and easy to change and to improve prior to doing IVF, and they can make a big difference on your fertility without the huge price tag of IVF. Yeah, so don't look at IVF as a shortcut to pregnancy, and don't think you can just throw money at the problem and get pregnant, because you might just be throwing money away. That's my advice on that. So yeah, so those are my reasons for trying natural cycles again after IVF. Been learning, I feel so much more hopeful about my chances of conceiving naturally because of what I've learned. And also, it was a good time to stop financially and emotionally. So that's what we did. Next question. How do I track my cycle? So right now I have just started tracking my cycle using my basal body temperature. I have a thermometer that I have right near my bedstand, and every morning at the same time, I will check my basal body temperature, or BBT for short. And that's one way of tracking my cycle. Previously, and continuing to this day, I also use ovulation test strips. I have found those to be very reliable for me. So those are just the test strips that you basically use your morning pee to see when your LH surge is happening. And once you have a positive signal on your ovulation test strip, then you will ovulate within 24 to 36 hours from there. So that is what I tracked before ovulation, and then your basal body temperature will rise 0.3 at least, Fahrenheit, if you're using that. And then that will confirm that ovulation has in fact happened. So those are the two ways that I am tracking my ovulation. I have a little task I need to do. While I'm getting these steaks ready for dinner, I also wanted to say about tracking how I'm doing cycle tracking right now. I am also using ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like my companion when it comes to tracking my cycle, because every morning I basically wake up, give ChatGPT my basal body temperature. I talk to it about my LH strips, what they're looking like, if I'm still using those. ChatGPT is like my personal health coach. Yeah, so I would highly recommend using that resource as well. ChatGPT has a lot of information, and a wealth of information, a wealth of resources. It'll answer your questions. It'll talk to you specifically about your temperatures and give you recommendations like, hey, it looks like it might be time for you to start testing using your ovulation test strips twice a day instead of just once a day, little things like that. So it's really helpful to get all your questions answered. It'll also create official trackers for you, as in the form of spreadsheets, timelines, any way that you kind of wanted to, if you wanted to take that out of the ChatGPT program. We're having steak and squash for dinner. No one asked me about the gluten-free and sugar-free, but that's still kind of a recent change. That's a change for just the cycle only, and that has been going well. I really appreciate the way I feel without any gluten or any sugar. Wish I had done this earlier in life, but here we are. All right, let's go back outside and get to the next question. Those are some dark clouds. That's what he was talking about. All around me. We will at least get through one more before I have to move inside. Next question. Do you have a timeline in mind for how long you'll keep trying? I think I kind of answered this in the first one, but I'm assuming you mean that, do I have a timeline for how long we'll keep trying naturally until we go back to IVF or a more medical approach? And the answer is no. We don't have a strict timeline for when we're going to stop trying naturally and go back to a more medicalized approach. But It won't be shorter than 6 months. I wanted to at least give myself 6 months of trying naturally. It takes an egg 3 months to fully mature before it is ready to be ovulated. So if you're going to make lifestyle changes, then the first egg that would be influenced by the lifestyle changes that you've made would be 3 months from now. So, for example, in this past cycle, I just started going gluten-free and sugar-free. So, the benefits that I am getting from not eating gluten and or sugar as much um, is going to influence an egg 3 months from now. So that's why I wanted to give myself at least 6 months before we started to consider going back to IVF. 6 months is also a great timeline for us to be able to get our finances back in order and figure out how we're going to navigate the rest of the insurance issues that we were having. And if the question is how long are we going to keep trying, if you're asking how long are we going to keep trying to have a family, there's no end date on that. We will leave no stone unturned until we have a family. So one way or another, it's going to happen. It's just the how is still a question. Okay, so thank you for joining me inside for just a couple more questions. These are things that didn't get specifically asked in the questions that were left on my Instagram or community page, but these are questions that I thought you might like to know the answers to, and questions that I've seen other creators be asked on this topic as well. So I've got my bone broth here, going to sip on that while I chat with you and stay inside from this Miami summer storm that is passing through in the background. So first question is, what has changed the most about your lifestyle since starting this journey? This question was actually really tough. So much has changed of my lifestyle since I started this journey, and so much that I didn't expect to change through this journey as well. I mean, it's literally been a journey. I did not know that the destination was going to look like it does today when I started this. But I'd have to say the thing that's changed the most in this is my mindset, my overall mindset and perspective on myself and my health. Previously, I knew there were things that I could be doing better to be healthier. You know, cutting out alcohol, working out more regularly, you know, probably eating at home more often, not overextending myself, living a typical Miami lifestyle, things like that. And so those were the things that I cut out immediately. And I thought that was basically all I pretty much needed to do to be in excellent health. And I was so wrong. After having to face a couple failures that pretty much caught me off guard in IVF, I started digging deeper into, well, how else can I support my health? How else can I support the ability for us as a couple to create a family? And on this YouTube channel, I've basically been documenting that entire journey. The entire journey of that I didn't know that I was embarking on, but it's been something that continually evolves and is changing every single cycle. And now I know that looking back, there was so much more I could have done to improve my health. And it's probably a good thing that I didn't know that there was a lot more work to do at that time, because I think that would have been very overwhelming for me. And so it's actually kind of been a perfect arc of every cycle, learning more and more and more, and then implementing small changes gradually into my life as I go and as I find it comfortable and easy to do. And they've stacked up this entire year of doing this. All of these changes that I've made have stacked one on top of the other until I'm in a very, very different place now than I was when I started this journey. So, And overall, I think if there's one word for that, it's my mindset. And so I would say that my mindset has been the biggest change along the path of this journey. Second question, how do you support yourself emotionally each cycle, especially when others don't understand? So I'll address the others not understanding part first, because I think that maybe a kind of behind the scenes perspective that you don't get to see if you don't have a YouTube channel or aren't as public about your story as I am. And that is that people are much more understanding than you are probably imagining. People are much more understanding than I was imagining them to be at first. When I decided to be so public about this journey, even prior to this journey being a successful one, which I think makes it even more makes the anxiety level perhaps a little greater when you're first getting started. I wasn't sure how people were going to receive that, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to be judged by everyone in my life for what I was going through, why I was going through it, et cetera, et cetera. And what I found is that people have been compassionate, generous, warm, and understanding, not only on this YouTube channel. Thank you all for those lovely comments, but also in real life. And I think it kind of ties into the fact that 1 in 3 couples will face fertility issues when they try to start a family, and that's a pretty big number. I remember when I read that statistic, I like to quote it all the time because I think it's so revealing about how not alone we are in this process. But yeah, 1 in 3 couples will experience fertility issues. And so, that means like out of 6 of your friends, 2 of them have been on some sort of path similar to this one. And I think that that's really helpful when you are going to talk to people about this in your life, or you casually mention, something that you're doing, that people can connect with you on that. And not only can people connect with you on that, but it's something that isn't talked about very much in our society. Surprisingly, with the statistic of 1 out of 3 couples having to go through this, it's not talked about a lot in our society. And so when I've opened up about it, people that I would never have guessed would want to talk to me about this will want to talk to me about this. They want to share their experiences. They want to ask, which doctors did I go to? What tests worked for me? What health changes did I make? Like, it opens up a whole topic of conversation that you can spend hours talking about. But it also opens up another level of connection with people that you might not have had otherwise. So when people don't understand, it's pretty easy to move on and move past that. If they don't understand, they don't understand. It's not a reflection on me. It's a reflection on them, and that's okay, because a lot of people do understand, and I find a lot of connection with people and support from other people. Just being open about this. So I wanted to share that because I feel like that's important to point out and to know. Like, even if you don't, want to share your journey still, that's fine. I'm not encouraging anyone to share their journey if they don't feel ready. But just know that the waters are warm on the other side. And you're always welcome to share your journey on my channel, because on my channel, you know that there's going to be other viewers like you probably interested in this subject because they're going through the same thing. And so it's generally a safe space to talk about things if you'd like to. And otherwise, how do I support myself emotionally? Personally, in my own life, I do try to treat myself like my own best friend. I try to talk to myself like I was my best friend. And in improving and trying to treat myself and my body well, I feel like I am supporting myself emotionally. Because the better that I treat myself, with the food that I eat, with the supplements that I take, with continuing to be physically active, and get time to myself, with journaling, with my red light therapy, which kind of sometimes doubles as a little bit of a meditative time for me, and getting lots of rest, just doing all the things that Yeah, that one does, to be a calm, serene, emotionally stable person. All of those things add up to me feeling better, me thinking clearer, and me handling the emotional ups and downs of this journey in a much more grounded and centered way. And so I have found that to be extremely helpful. Also, I am just super curious and I want to know everything about what I'm going through and what my body's doing and the entire process. So I indulge that. I indulge that interest as much as I can. And that's why I end up reading books on the subject, listening to podcasts, and make as much time for that kind of learning aspect of this as I can. So those are the two questions that I thought might round out this video well for you. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being a part of this community on this channel, for following my journey, for connecting with me on your own journey. And I love hearing other people's experiences on any aspect of this, whether you're walking the same path right now, whether you've walked this path in the past and are now on the other side of that, whether you're considering walking this path. I invite you to share your experiences, share your thoughts and ideas, your reactions, your opinions in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And also, if there are questions that I did not answer in this Q&A, feel free to leave those below as well. And I will take note of them and perhaps answer them in a future video. And as you can see, maybe you can't see this, but we've fully transitioned into a rainstorm here in Miami, so it's a perfect place to close out this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.